Hey there everybody, Jason here with another retro review. We're going to keep this Spider Marathon going with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, considering this movie is 10 years old, I'm not going to give a spoiler warning. You either haven't seen it or you have, and that's that. So all that being said, let's dive in, shall we? So, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. While the first Amazing Spider-Man movie was Sony's attempt to kickstart their own Spider-Man cinematic universe, this film takes that a step even further, not only setting up The Amazing Spider-Man 3, but a potential Sinister Six film. And because of that, this film very much falls in the same trap that Spider-Man 3 did, but so much worse. One saving grace to this film is the performances. Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy are a big part of that. The chemistry between the two of them is even stronger in this movie, and both of them really build on that dynamic that they started in the first movie, and it's the relationship between these two characters that really keeps you invested in the story of this movie, or lack thereof, and makes what happens to Gwen Stacy at the end of the movie even more tragic. And I really particularly enjoyed Andrew Garfield in this film. He certainly builds upon the performance from the previous film and even elevates it even further. And it just works, and he's just so great in this movie. And I just thought he was the perfect fit for this version of Spider-Man. Another big standout performance, of course, is Jamie Foxx as Electro. When he's Max Dillon, he plays him very awkward and nerdy and kind of weird. And then, of course, this stone cold villain as Electro. And just the dichotomy of those two characters really works. There's still hints of the old Max when he becomes Electro, but it's certainly a different character once he makes that transition, and he does it quite well. And just the effects of the makeup and everything they used on him, and the CG effects really works as well. Sally Field also, once again, really solid performance as Aunt May. The chemistry between her and Andrew Garfield is great. You really feel like a mother-son relationship between the two of them. And it's just a shame that she doesn't get very many scenes in this film, just like in the previous film. But she does make good use of the screen time that she has. One character I felt was a bit miscast was Dean DeHaan as Harry Osborn. I just feel like he's a bit too quiet and just a bit too hammy in places, and some of his dialogue is just a bit too... It just feels so scripted. And I just feel like if the character was written a bit differently, maybe you would have felt for him more, and the relationship between him and Peter would have felt like a bit more of a betrayal than it does by the end of this movie. It just feels like he's very much thrown in here, and you're not given the same context that you were in the previous, trilogy with James Franco and Tobey Maguire as Harry Osborn and Peter Parker. It just feels a bit stilted. It feels a bit scripted. It feels a bit awkward. That's the one big character beat that I just feel like doesn't work here. And the action is pretty cool. Some of the visuals are amazing, especially with Electro and some of the fight scenes towards the end of the movie. But I feel like there's just so much crammed into this movie. There's just characters that are dropped in there. Like Paul Giamatti is just thrown in as the Rhino. And there's not even really for that much. He's just thrown in at the end, and you don't even get to see him fight Spider-Man. They used that scene in the trailer, and it feels like a big tease for a big fight that's going to happen. But that's the end of the movie. That's just how the movie ends. It's very frustrating, and there's a lot of stuff like that happens throughout the movie. Things just happen and they're dropped. Characters are just introduced, and it's in a way that's meant to tease them for a future film in the franchise that just never really took off. Considering where this franchise is now, it just makes all of that even more frustrating and even more disappointing. Like, Shailene Woodley was supposed to be Mary Jane Watson in this film, and she wasn't. She was cut from the film because there was just so much packed in there. That should have been a big sign right there that this movie was just going to be too top heavy, even more so than the way that Spider-Man 3 was. And it just feels like more of the same. One big thing that really frustrated me about this movie, that's kind of alluded to in the first movie, is the use of Richard Parker's blood for creating those radioactive super spiders. One thing that made Peter Parker so special was that he was just a nobody who got bitten by a radioactive spider. He could have literally been anyone. Anyone could have become Spider-Man. By making it Richard Parker's blood as the catalyst for this experiment, it robs that average everyman quality of Spider-Man. Like, he became Spider-Man for a reason. He was special. He was different. It just kind of ruins the idea of the character of Spider-Man, that literally anyone could be Spider-Man. No, it's this specific guy who is Spider-Man. And it's another part of this thing that's really frustrating to me. It just falls and crumbles under the weight of itself. It just brings me back to Spider-Man 3 all over again, but in a far worse capacity, because it wasn't just studio mandates trying to make all this stuff happen. It was, let's try to catch up with Marvel, and instead of focusing on the movie we're in, let's focus on the next 5 or 6 movies that can be made through this movie. And it just really hurts the film, and it just really does not work. Overall, The Amazing Spider-Man was just a exercise in frustration and disappointment. There's just so much going on, a lot of it in service of setting up so much more that wound up never materializing. And it's just truly disappointing. The performances are amazing. Everybody does such a fantastic job. Most everyone, anyway. And the visuals are pretty striking. And the action sequences are pretty incredible. But with all that stuff just happening and just being thrown in, it just kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. While Gwen Stacy's death at the end of the film is impactful, the wind is taken out of your sails, especially with that cliffhanger ending that probably wouldn't have even been resolved anyway. It's just a big tangled mess and a disappointment because it was setting up something that never really happened, because they wound up rebooting the franchise again in an even shorter period of time than this one. But that is just my opinion. Let me know what you thought of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 down in the comments. Do you think it was a mess? What was your favorite part? Who was your favorite character? I want to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to click that like button. If you want to see more videos, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can get updates on all my future videos. You can also follow my social media pages. Links down in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Bye.